in storytelling now, everything is exposition. Everything has to be explained. Nothing can be felt. Nothing can be left to the imagination. And Jon didn't want to do that. He wanted you to make the connections of certain things. For instance, when he steps out the balcony, he takes that beat and he's seeing the chaos and he's realizing like all of this is because of me. And he really, really wanted the connection to the girl to be felt. He didn't want to have to explain that. We're just so used to the quick cuts explaining what's happening in the scene instead of it being more Martin Scorsese and kind of just, let your brain fill in the gap.
Is that much of it? That's not much of a change for you, right?
My name is Carey Kight. I used to load bombs in the Air Force, and now I'm a writer, a filmmaker, and an entrepreneur. Through using the post-9/11 GI Bill to go to college, working hourly jobs to pay the bills, and freelancing my way into a career, I've studied what it takes to successfully transition from service to civilian, and that study has become a conversation. On this podcast, I speak to other veterans, successful artists, and entrepreneurs about their transition, what they did well, where they failed, what they learned, and most importantly, how they applied their skills.
In episode 179, I welcome back Nick Koumalatsos. This time, we talk about his work as a consulting producer on the Punisher: One Last Kill. Nick brings a rare perspective to this conversation, not just as a Force Recon Marine and Special Operations veteran, but as someone who has done the personal work of examining identity, purpose, transition, rock bottom, and what it actually takes to rebuild after service. This conversation is about storytelling, responsibility, realism, and what happens when a character like Frank Castle is treated not as a superhero, but as a human being, a husband, a father, a Marine, and a man carrying the full cost of every choice he's made.
Welcome. This is Veteran Made.
Our merch store is live at store.veteranmadeproductions.com. Grab hats, t-shirts, and hoodies in both performance and tri-blend cotton fabrics. Use code VM-5OFF for 5% off your purchase. Veteran Made is also sponsored by GoPills, a military-grade nootropic that contributes to brain health over time. Use code VM15 at checkout for 15% off. I get my collagen protein from Bubs Naturals, where you can use code VETERANMADE, all one word, at checkout for 20% off your order. We're also proud to partner with True Made Foods, which makes condiments free from added sugar and sweetened with real foods. Use code VET at checkout for 15% off.
We love socks in this house. I get my wife new socks every Christmas. More importantly, we love American-grown and made socks. Use code VETERANMADE15 at rucksocks.com for 15% off.
And lastly, I end my day with Rack Out from Bravo Actual to maintain quality sleep, resulting in a well-rested body and mind. Use code VETERANMADE with a space between the words at checkout for 15% off your order. Enjoy the episode.
Good morning from the great state of Ohio for me. Good morning from the great state of North Carolina. Nick Koumalatsos, welcome back to Veteran Made.
Hey, yeah, absolutely.
I'm stoked to have you on. Stoked to chat the Punisher today. We don't need to kind of go back and do the whole backstory of you and intro. Folks can go back and listen to the first episode we did together a few years ago to get that. So I'd love to just jump right in. And, you're a consulting producer on the Punisher: One Last Kill. And so I'd love to chat about your entry point into the Marvel Cinematic Universe and your relationship with Jon Bernthal and how you got started.
Yeah, and I don't know if it will continue, but it was what an honor and a blessing to do this run with him. So I am a managing partner of Core Medical Group. The CEO of that is Sidney Gordon. Just so happens to have a brother-in-law named Jon Bernthal. So we were at his wife's party, and we met there, and we got to talking, and then found out about my book, Excommunicated Warrior: The 7-Stage Transition. So I sent him one, and he read it cover to cover. And that's when he was like pushing Real Ones post-COVID and stuff, and Real Ones was cranking. And which is kind of like a passion project for him, which came out freaking phenomenal. And so he asked me to go on there. Now, at the time, this is when they were nerfing, trying to nerf Daredevil and Punisher, and Marvel was just really going through their, identity crisis of, in my opinion, like what people wanted, what they thought that people wanted, which obviously none of it worked. And so he just wasn't down, and I talked to him because I was like, dude, what's the deal with the Punisher, like on the side, outside of the podcast? And he's like, oh man, like, I'm not doing it. And he even said it then. He's like, either we do that right or we don't do it at all. He's like, the way that they won is not that. And that's all public information. I mean, almost everybody from Daredevil and everybody that was involved with those projects wanted to walk. And finally, he got his way, and he got his way with when Born Again came. Like they changed, they basically rewrit everything and then redid a bunch of things and made it. And I thought the first season of Born Again was phenomenal. And but anyways, we did the podcast, and then maybe about a year later, he called me and said, "Hey, they want me to come in to be on the Born Again. I've got a couple of scenes. Would you be willing to attach yourself to the Punisher and help me flesh out this character, and the personality, the psychology of it?" And I was like, absolutely. If you guys don't know, Frank Castle's character was a Force Recon Marine. As his background, I mean, he did, special operations on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They brought him into special operations as well. And I'm like, well, it's kind of strange. I was a Force Recon Marine, and then I went to special operations, and then I wrote this book about transitioning out. There's just a lot of correlations there. And so if you look at episode 4 of Born Again, that was our first iteration. So we kind of wrote that scene together, and collaborated. And I went up there and was basically a non-credited technical consultant on his layer, that first layer that you see, which they actually took pictures of all my stuff in my office and then recreated it for the set. And so I went up there, and there was like some Navy SEAL stuff in there. I was like, that's got to go. Like, that was the first thing that I noticed. I'm like, that's not real. And they were great, man. The art department, costume, everybody was just really cool to work with on that first scene. And they were just all in. And it was, John wanted it. He had his blessing, and they were just like, whatever we need to do. So we went back and forth, and there's a lot of work to have him show back up 10 years. Like, I know it's a very short scene, but that was his first showing in 10 years. They really wanted to get it all right. And they wanted to get the set right. They wanted to get his clothes right. And John had some different ideas as well. And so they just integrated very well. And it was a hell of an experience on that portion.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, in the world of IP, right? Like, you have Disney is making this play at Star Wars, which isn't super successful right now. And then they're making this play at Marvel, which is obviously quite a bit more successful, but it's had its ups and downs, like you were mentioning. Yeah. And, for Jon to say, like, I love this character. And I think I've heard you mention before that Netflix didn't have a military technical advisor, right? So while Jon portrayed the character, well, I love the Netflix Daredevil, love the Netflix Punisher, stuff like that. It's great.
It's great. He did a phenomenal job. Yeah.
But it's interesting because there's these, in the comic book nerd sort of, community of which I kind of dip my toe into every once in a while. Right? I love these comics. I've loved them, forever. There's the whole retcon thing, right? And there's this idea of like, well, we can't do it, and now it's moving over to Netflix and Born Again. And it's like, how is it going to, connect to that? And it seems like, at least with Frank's character here, you guys just sort of cut the Gordian knot and said, none of that actually matters. We have a fresh start and an opportunity to start over, essentially, and reference some things and say, here's who this character is, and we're just going to lean into the realism as well as the background.
Absolutely. And we got to realize, like, the reason why, and I think that people, the two biggest complaints that I hear, which are valid. The first one is that, like, the one last kill was too short. Obviously it was too short. Why they cut it the way they did, I don't know. That's above my pay grade, but I think they could.
Sorry to stop you, but is there quite a bit like on the cutting room floor? Like, is there? Because it's interesting. Like, they could have made that a feature length film. Yeah, I love, for what it's worth, I love the restraint. Like, as a comic book reader, right? Yeah. Like, we read these one shots, and like a lot of times, if you're not, I mean, I'm a husband, a dad, an entrepreneur. Like, I'm pretty busy, so I'm not reading comics weekly, right? So sometimes I'll go back and I'll read like a one shot, whether it's Punisher, whether it's Batman, whether it's whatever, and like those are great because if the backstory's there, amazing. If it's not, it kind of works. And I personally, as a viewer and audience member, feel like the restraint of this 50-minute one shot like worked really well. I understand what you're saying. People wanted more, and especially if you worked on it, you wanted to see all of it. But like that restraint, I think worked really well.
It did. I think that, in my opinion, people are so used to, and I don't mean this like it's completely derogatory, but it will make sense. Like the TikTok generation.
Yeah.
Like there is in storytelling now, everything is exposition. Everything has to be explained. Nothing can be felt. Nothing can be left to the imagination. Nothing can be left to thought. And Jon didn't want to do that. He didn't want to do exposition. He wanted to tell a story. He wanted you to make the connections of certain things. And I think that a lot of it just went over people's heads. You know, for instance, like the balcony scene, like when he steps out the balcony, takes that beat, and he's seeing the chaos, and he's realizing like all of this is because of me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think, unfortunately, because they're spoon-fed stories now, you know, like one of the ones that caught me off the guard was the spinoff of Yellowstone, Marshals.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's like they just tell you. There's just so much exposition, and it's like it's so far away from what that, you know, where they started, and we didn't want that. He really didn't want that. He wanted the connection to the girl to be felt. He didn't want to have to explain that. And so, anyways, I think sometimes because we're so used to our attention span so small as a community of people that are, you know, just consuming entertainment. We're just so used to the quick cuts, the exposition of explaining how things are gonna, you know, what's happening in the scene, without, you know, instead of it being more Martin Scorsese and kind of just, you know, let your brain fill in the gaps.
Yeah, and your heart too, right? Like that's
Right.
part of I think Frank's connections here in this story, right? You mentioned the balcony scene, and then also that scene where he steps onto the streets and sees the chaos, right? Like you can understand that this is both all because of him, and then he has to choose who he's going to save and who he's going to kill in that environment, right?
Yeah,
and he
keep in mind, like the whole reason that he's the Punisher isn't because he just wants to vanquish evil. He doesn't care about all the bad guys in the world. He cares about the people that are on this mission. I think that's what's getting lost. And we talked about season 2, how he was like kind of helping and kind of gotten over it and everything. And I was like, but we even felt that was nerfed. Like when a man is mission complete and loses his purpose and identity, we don't just go, okay, cool, I'm gonna go help this girl. You know what I mean? Like that's not the reality. Like they didn't take him dark enough. And so in 2023, we were walking the streets of New York when we did that theme, and we wanted it to be heavy. We wanted it to feel like, and a lot of stuff was coming out of my book even then, some inspiration, but he wanted to feel like he's kind of at the end of his rope, based off his look. He's on pain pills. He's drinking. You know, like, in my opinion, I know Marvel didn't back this, but in my opinion, just based off demeanor, One Last Kill takes place after episode 4, Born Again.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can watch his demeanor, you can watch his look, where his eyes are, what he's thinking, especially when Charlie Cox walks out of that scene and he's just left there. And then, you know, in episode 9, you see him, he's cleaned up, he's got a different kind of beat, you know, a different personality beat around him. He's a little bit more upbeat, a little more joking, you know, not so like pissed off. And I feel like that's like back to being the Punisher. He's like, yeah, we're doing a mission. You know what I mean? And I know that they're saying this comes after, and maybe it does, but from a personality standpoint, from an acting standpoint, I really feel like it falls in between, because Jon felt like for this guy to really if we can put this story to bed, to put the original story to bed, he has to hit rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
He has to be completely done and like mission complete and have nowhere else to go. And I don't feel like the Netflix series put it to bed the right way, and neither did he. And he really, really wanted to, based off of how much the character means to him, how it's connected to veterans. He wanted to show the realism behind hitting rock bottom and the things that people struggle with when they lose purpose and they lose that identity that drove them.
Yeah, and I think that's what's beautiful and interesting about this is you guys show it, right? And I want to hear a little bit about, rather than tell it, right? And I want to hear a little bit about how elements from your life and elements from your book made it into this narrative fiction, right? Because we have, you wrote a book that is kind of like part memoir, part leadership, right? And there's a lot in our community of those books, and there's a ton of value in them. Obviously, there's value in your book, just period, for the community, and then there's value here as Jon related to it, and then said, let me write some of this stuff into this, film. And there's like this kind of fiction can be this like interesting vehicle for truth in a way that just telling people, hey, I hit rock bottom because these things happened, and then here's how I built myself up. Story can actually take that deeper.
It's funny you say the story, because when I was talking to the publisher, the reason why my book's self-published is when I was talking to a publisher, a very large publisher, and their note was, we either need to take the story out and make it about the 7-stage transition, just clean, or it just be the story and not the 7 stages transition. I'm like,
it's got to be both.
There's no buy-in. Like the 7 stages work, it explains because I share my story and it connects with other people's story, and they're able to empathize because of where they're at and where I'm at in the story. And I can't even tell you how many times people have read that book and said, dude, honestly, I feel like I was just changed my name to your name, and I didn't even do what you did, and I feel like I was reading my own story. And I was like, well, it's because you're a human being, and this isn't I'm not a special butterfly, and all of us kind of go through this similar thing. And that's what I saw as a trend, and the reason why I wrote it, because I was like, this is a thing that's happening with everyone. Mm-hmm. And if you live long enough and hard enough and push yourself, but yeah, that was the thing. So as far as the book goes, there's little things in there that was a little like, honestly, like being on set, it was creepy, and talking to Elena and Sana, the executive producers, and that we work for Marvel and produce all the stuff that people are digging right now. They're like, how does that feel to be here watching this in the producer's tent? And I'm like, honestly, it's heavy. It was interesting. So everything from, like for me, when I Fallujah was, and during the surge of 2006, and that was a rough deployment on my recon team, a recon platoon, and we lost a couple guys there, and I just continue to move on. And I talk about this in the book, is like, because you do that job, somebody dies or somebody gets hurt, just continue, they go away, and you continue to move on, like the mission continues. And then that deployment ends, and then you get to another team, and you're right back in a workup, and then another deployment. So you never really deal with your baggage. But over a period of 12 years, I'm collecting, like kind of like a train, I'm collecting these cabooses of baggage, and I'm going 300 miles an hour. It's not a problem as long as I'm going 300 miles an hour. But then you get out and you go 10 miles an hour, and all that stuff just smacks you right in the back of the head. And now you're losing. So now you're dealing with all of this stuff that you haven't thought about in years. And then you lose your identity. Then you also, on top of that, you lose your purpose. And then you start having health issues because, it starts to catch up with you. And so it's just this perfect storm of chaos in your life. And you're like, I'm unprepared for all of it. So one of the weird things that would happen to me is I'm driving down the road, and I haven't thought about, and selfishly, I really haven't put a lot of thought to a lot of my dead friends. And then I'll see somebody in a crowd as I'm driving down the road. It's like, one of those double take things, and he's not there. And that started happening multiple times. And that's what that syndrome is when your brain starts to catch up, you start to kind of hallucinate these people. They start to manifest in different ways, and you start to do second thoughts. And that's kind of why, obviously, it's Hollywood, we turn the volume on it. But these hallucinations of people that was manifesting themselves in his life whether through voice or through his head, or, and it's not whether they're dead or alive. Obviously, some of them are dead, some of them are alive. But it's really that inner dialogue that Frank is going through, and he's having all those different things. So that's one of them. The drinking and the pills, that's all real, and working out. And there's times that, like in there I talk about it as, being in the garage with the lights off, just going to town on stuff, and you're just crushing pain pills. That just became a normal, chewing up pain pills, chewing up 800 milligram Motrin. That was just normal. And so he wanted to show like what somebody that's in their, been doing this job in their late 40s and just wreaking havoc on his body. I mean, he's not a young man, he's been doing this. He's a human. He's not a superhero, and his body's beat up. Seen how many times has he gotten just completely wrecked, thrown in the hospital, damn near died, and the body keeps a score. So showing that realism, showing that to sleep, to deal with the pain, pain pills and drinking, and of course that makes all the other things even worse, right? That's a negative snowball effect of the hallucinations and the thoughts and the negative internal dialogue, all the way down to calling it quits when he felt like, hey, there's nobody else to kill. I've done it. I've revenged you guys. There's no purpose. Now it's time for me to check out. And that was a situation that happened to me one night on the beach. And that story's in the book, and I was ready to end it. And all the negative dialogue in my head, like the kids would be better off, and there's so many veterans go through this. So many men in general go through this. Suicide is, I'm learning, is not even a veteran epidemic. It's a male epidemic in this country. And so all the negative dialogue in your head and all the storytelling. And then it was an interesting thing that happened, and we can get into the scientific side of it, but the reality is I'm at the beach, and I started having these flashes of my daughters. And at the time, I had only had 2 kids. And I started having these flashes of my daughters, and different things started floating through my head. And what caused me to not, it pulled me back. And so we wanted to show that dichotomy of like him wanting to end it, him having nothing left, him being mission complete, not really wanting to exist in this earth anymore because his people are gone. He's killed everybody. He's avenged them. And then this dichotomy of seeing his wife and kids, and then his, that little Addie, his real daughter, shows up, she did such a killer job, man.
She was great.
She did so good. Yeah. Don't play her in your nose though. She'll probably, she'll take your money and probably speed to get there. But
it's interesting because so there's the real life connections, right? Like you had kids, and so you had this vision. And I do want to hear about some of that, the science behind that. And then, Jon, through the screenplay, is able to then make that connection from you and your story in the book, and then connect it to Frank's daughter and his family, right? So it's that like blend of fiction and memoir, which I would imagine removes you enough from it, right? Whether you're watching at Video Village or you're also performing in one of those scenes, right? So I want to hear, you said the EPs that asked you like, what is it like to see these things being performed? But then what was it like to actually step in and perform with Jon and the other cast members?
Well, first of all, like being in a room with Jon as an actor, like you just realize how like this is a real profession, and people have to work really hard because the dude is like, I've never seen anything like it. I just saw his I don't know when this thing will come out, but I think the end of June will be the last of Dog Day Afternoon on Broadway. Oh yeah. If you guys can make it, it's a once in a lifetime thing. Like go to New York, see him and Evan do Dog Day Afternoon. It's phenomenal. But the guy is like, there's a reason why he is what he is, and there's a reason why he steals the screen in every scene he's in. Like he just takes over. His personality takes over. And so being in the room, one, looking at it from the outside, you really just kind of you kind of start refilling those emotions. And the dialogue that's in there, you just kind of like, it's a memory that you're like, oh wow, that's exactly what happened. Like the dialogue with him and Deborah or Karen Page, like that's all real dialogue. That's all real things that's happened, and that's where he's having to come to grips with it. Yeah, that's all real dialogue. Like, and the reality is people go, oh, thank you for your service, but the reality is, on a job like that, you have to volunteer for all of it. There's no, like, it's not like you're assigned special operations and you have to go do the job. No, you're volunteering for the training. You're volunteering for the selection. You're volunteering for like, at any point you can just be like, this isn't for me. And you can walk out the door and do something else. Like, it is an all volunteer job. At any point in special operations, you can just go, I'm out. I quit. And they will put you somewhere else. And they will take away your MOS, and you don't have to do that. It's a volunteer thing. So yeah, I think we thought it was important to highlight that just like all of the pain that's caused by Frank Castle, like, he chose all that. And then even the death of his family, like, you chose to be in, you chose the next school, you chose the next team. Like, all of these are choices that you make. You're not a fucking victim here, you know? And that's where she's kind of like hammering that, like, husband, father, that was a mask that you wore. This is who you wore. You're Frank Castle. You're the Punisher. Don't lie. And it was important that he felt that it was important that we showed that, like, there has to be some personal responsibility on his side. And that helps him. I think in some ways it helps him make that transition to becoming the Punisher that everybody wants to see, where we're just out, you know, strategically, you know, killing bad guys, taking them off the board.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned earlier in the conversation that he's not a superhero, right? And like, that's what people say about Batman all the time, right? On the DC side, like, oh, we love Batman because, you know, he's just a real being, really wealthy, and so then he can make this, you know, quote unquote responsible choice. Whereas with Frank in the MCU, there's this, you know, you look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now, and it is going to space. It is going to the multiverse. It is going to all of these really fun and interesting places. We just took our daughter through kind of like up through kind of where we're at right now. And it's like super fun to watch all those movies. Then you log on to Disney Plus and you watch One Last Kill, and it is what you're describing, which is like, this is a realistic depiction of current GWAT SOF veterans, right, inside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is like how the hell did this kind of thing happen, right?
How did they allow this to happen, right?
Yeah, which
like, we snuck one by on everybody.
Yeah, and it's amazing, right? Because it re-grounds us. People love like grounded storytelling in these universes, right? But like, this is the most grounded, right? Like, okay, if this dude is a special operations veteran, well then, like, let's actually tell that story and tell the truth from all angles and all sides. And what you're describing, that scene with Karen that you're describing, is like, you're like, yeah, there's a lot of people out there that are like, yeah, I want to be a soft dude. I want to go do that. And it's like, well, right? Because this is what could happen. This is what does happen a lot of times. Yeah,
there's some selfishness involved in that. And I think it's important that we acknowledge it. You know, everybody's like, no, I want to go serve my country. It's like, no, dude, listen, riding around on motorcycles in bad guy land, riding in and out of helicopters with guns and my friends, like, that's cool. Like, that's really freaking cool. And yeah, I liked doing that job. It was fun for me. You know what I mean? Yes, I was of service, and I was serving the military, and I was doing X, Y, and Z. And sure. But at the end of the day, jumping out of planes, diving, all the things that I did, like, there's a certain amount of selfishness because I wanted to go play Rambo. Yep. And I think it's important that as you age, like, you acknowledge the choices that you made and anything that comes with it.
Yeah, I think, you know, we've spent a lot of time in our culture putting people in the military at large up on a pedestal. We experience it every Memorial and every Veterans Day. And then especially in the special operations community now, right? We've had these highly kinetic deployments. The military's had highly kinetic deployments, and lots of them back to back to back, right? And so there's this tendency to look at you guys and say, wow, you're so special. It's in the name, right? Like, you're better than me. You're better than these other people. And you certainly are at certain tasks, right? But what's been removed from you is your humanity. And so to sort of bridge the military civilian divide through storytelling and say, yep, I'm capable of all these things. Just wait until you see what Frank does throughout this entire apartment complex. It's dope and really, really cool, but there's a cost. And
Right.
also, I'm a dude. I'm a husband. I'm a father.
That's
Like,
right.
it's complex.
Yeah. I'm a human being. This
Yeah.
stuff will affect you regardless.
Yeah.
No matter how badass you are, like you're still a human being.
Yeah.
And I think that right there is what we wanted to see. I feel like for him to step into Spider-Man in the world of Spider-Man, this had to be done. Like this story has to be put to bed, but it put to bed in the right way that's honorable to the community and honorable to the character. And
Yeah.
I think we did that.
Yeah. I want to save. I have some Spider-Man questions. I want to then save that towards the end. So back to your performance in that scene with him. Was it cathartic for you? Like, was it helpful for you to relive some of that stuff through this medium? After
No, I
having
mean, I think I've done so much personal work that it was I wouldn't say it was cathartic. I would just say it was like heavy because you kind of relive it.
Yeah.
A little bit, but and seeing it from the other side, and that's kind of like why you hear some of the dialogue, like you're the best of us, and that's kind of like calling him out, like it's all you got, Frank, and then Jason Moore killed it, killed his line.
Yeah.
On the street, he was like, "Oh, poor Frank, nothing left to do, all done," and he's just kind of calling him out, and that's kind of what the that's what the inner dialogue was talking about was, come on, Frank, that's all you are, the big bad Punisher. You're going to call it quits because you can't hear their name, and kind of like if you can hear it, we can't hear their names. We're dead. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like you are still alive. You still have the opportunity to do something. And you're going to call it quits, and you were the best of us. You're the best operator that we had, and so it's that, and that goes into that tug of war in your brain of like the inner advocate saying like you're the best of us, you can keep going, you can do this, you can make it through the other side, and then the inner critic or the inner bitch like saying that like you're all washed up, you're done, you're a waste, look what you've done to the community, look what you've done to other people, your family, based off the choices. So there's this like tug of war between moving forward and calling it quits. And I think that's what those scenes are about, and because you see it kind of going back and forth. You see it getting heavy, and then you see Curtis, you see Jason Moore telling him like, "I got you, you're here." And the same thing with Karen Page, like she's like, "I got you, you're here, I'm with you," but then also like holding him accountable. So there's like this back and forth, and I think that is why you see the struggle of what and that's what we're trying to depict. It's like just getting pulled in multiple directions. He can't make clarity of what's real and what direction he's head.
Yeah, I think there's levels to it as well, right? Like obviously all of this in the context of your story and the deployments and your experiences, and then Frank's fictional experiences. Like, yes, there's the veteran component, the combat veteran component, the military component to it, but it's also like the male middle-aged experience on tilt for like.
With the volume, it's reality with the volume turned up to 100.
Yeah, I sat in that chair right there, the yellow one right there, and watched it over here. There's the TV over here, and it's like I'm like sitting there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't have these experiences specifically, but like I know exactly how this feels being a husband, a dad, a provider, and a member of the community. I'm like, holy shit, and it's like the intensity works at both of those levels, which I think is great. So maybe
makes you hold your breath through several scenes, doesn't it? You're like, oh, shit, I got to breathe.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe cathartic was, I guess, the wrong way to frame the question. But I guess how much has the work that you've done, the personal work that you've done, prepared you for this role? What you did as a consulting producer here on this film and working with Jon.
I think it's everything. I think it's everything. I don't think that I would have been able to had the other side of point of view. Like I'm not a normal military guy that is doing I don't know, tactics and whatnot. Like that's not really me. Even though I can do that, but that's not the end all be all. And I think that me going through this thing that I did and then coming out the other side and then really understanding not only how I help myself, but how I can help others, gave me the unique point of view and the experience to see the whole story arc. where he was, what he had to go through, and then what takes things to the other side, and why that is. What motivates a man to become better? What motivates a man to find purpose when everything has been taken away from him? What motivates him to find this new identity when he's lost it? And the things that he did, I think one of the big things is, we find out, like, we have these certain principles and these ideas that we are foundational beliefs for us. And what happens when we find out those are wrong or negative or a lie? I think that's the reason why, like, you see him cut his eagle of an anchor. It's like he had this thought of what this thing was and what he was a part of, and he realizes it's not, that he's alone. And we said that we that scene in Born Again where he goes, "So thank you for your service," like, and he's like, "Been downrange, look where it got me." You know what I mean? Yep. So it's weird. Like, we're tied to this organization, we're tied to this identity and this community that we come from, but at the same time, we're resentful of it. We're angry, so complicated.
Yeah, it's unique. I think probably not wholly unique, but there's a unique element to the Marine Corps, right? Because you guys all have like once a Marine, always a Marine, right? I love the framing of the film too. With that, I mean, talk about not editing this for the TikTok generation. The way that this one opens with that Marine Corps veteran. I'm not going to what I haven't watched, but like, holy shit, we're just sitting in those series of moments with the character, and then it comes back, right? And there's that line where he's like, "That's not the only thing he took." It's like, dude, like it's just so
it had to go, had to be taken care of. This thing had to be taken care of. That's right.
Yeah. No, you guys are, I've had obviously doing 100, this is 100 episode 179. So I've gotten to know a bunch of Marines super well over the course of this venture. And like, yeah, you guys have such a unique perspective. And it's also interesting that the GWAT generation of Marine has a different perspective than the previous generations. You guys are like kind of iterating on. I grew up in San Diego, just outside of Camp Pendleton in Fallbrook, California, where like my Pop Warner coaches were Marine Corps, senior enlisted Marine Corps officers. So I had this like really interesting, formative experience through football with the Marines, and then served in the Air Force and supported you guys downrange and lots of cool things, but didn't get a ton of like, interaction with you guys. And then now that I'm doing this and I talk to a bunch of you all the time, I'm like, you guys are the same, but different than previous Marine.
Yeah, we're our own little unique band of special people. So.
Yeah, I love you guys. I think it's great. I want to get into the tactics here, right? Because like I think I'd heard you say either on a podcast, right? I had read it. You had talked about the accuracy, of mag changes and like all these different things, right? So we're kind of going through this apart. Walk us through, not beat by beat, scene by scene there in the apartment complex, but what did you bring, and what did the rest of the tactical advisement team bring to the realistic nature of close quarters combat in that way?
So first of all, the stunt team, Jude and Conk and David Conk and Jude Boyers, they did an amazing job. All of the people that were on that core stunt team, all of them are just like, you want to love movies, you got to love stunts. They need more props. They make the movie happen. Without them, it would just be boring, right? Yeah. It would just be a couple of guys in a room crying and yelling versus what everybody wants, the action. So a lot of my job was really just to refine some action in Colton Hill as well, which he worked on Spider-Man. You have to have him on and talk about Spider-Man. But when I went in, I said, listen, like the action's the action, but like it's the devil's in the details. So like the unlimited magazine, things like that, and even down to what weapons we were using, because you see like he's calling it quits. He has no access to weapons, so we're using black market. All the bad guys got guns, so I was like, well, it can't be NATO style weapons from the law enforcement or military. They need to be black market guns that you would see that. So Russian, Chinese, different style weapons, anything you can get on the street, and or in big weapons deals. And so, but if we're going to do that though, like if Frank Castle, the character, is one of the best operators in the world, and he's going to know how to manipulate all these different weapons and use them. And so that was our concept there, was like, this is going to be more, he doesn't have anything. So it's going to be more weapons of opportunity. He's going to have to fight his way through this building and kind of choose your own adventure and pick up things as he's using. And it was important for me to have this thing feel more real. And I think we did that. And so for my job, it was really just to refine what Jude and Constance just made this beautiful cinematic, fight sequence through half the movie. So mine was really just little things like, we're not just shooting like 100 rounds at a time. It's, we don't know, we're picking this gun up. We don't know how many rounds it is. Let's check the magazine. Let's press check and make sure that we got one in the chamber. And then the way he moves is much less berserker and more tactical. And I think that we solved that. And that's what we want to see. We want to see Frank as an operator move like an operator.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, he was switching eyes, switching hands. He was doing all kinds of crazy shit.
Yeah, which we haven't seen in the past. Most of the time, it's just brutality and berserker mode. But and listen, Frank can get that. Like, if that switch has to be flipped, he can flip that switch too. But if it doesn't, he's also more. He can be surgical as well. And so that's what we wanted to see. We wanted to see, dead checks, and we wanted to see failure drills. We want to see really good shot placement. We want to see good weapons manipulation. And that's what that was his call too. He said, listen, we either do it right or we don't do it at all, period. That was his theme for the whole thing. And we did that.
So how do you blend? I mean, obviously there's like a bit of a movement right now with you've got the Terminalist series, you've got the Gray Man on Netflix, you've got the Extraction, the Hemsworth movies, you've got all these different things with all these, former soft guys like you coming in and advising and helping. But then you're also working with professional Hollywood stunt teams who have an understanding of how this actually has to work for the edit, right? For the shots, for the lighting, for all the different things. So that's
where a lot of military guys can get in some hot water with the stunt coordinators if they don't understand that, like, yes, this is how you do it in real life. But for a camera, it needs to be stacked, or it needs to be like there's a certain level of education that needs to take place. If a guy's straight out of the military and just walks on a set, he's going to be a little bit out of his element. But then again, remember, you're there to help, right? You're not there to tell them what they're doing is wrong. For me, luckily, I had a film degree and then I had a master's in business entertainment. So like had already had exposure to production prior to, so I understand, camera, and I understand storytelling. So for me, it was like, listen, let's just work together. And we did a good job at that. Of, this is what you're trying to do. Can we meet in the middle? So there's certain things like that, that the arm triangle, when he threw the person off the thing, we grabbed the weapon, we did some weapon manipulation, shot, did an arm triangle, and we used that arm triangle to throw the thing off. So normally it would be done a little bit different, but because of camera, because we had to throw the body off, we had to stack it a certain way that if you look at it in person, you're like, well, that's wrong. But on camera, it looks really good. I think that's what's important to understand is there has to be a give and take. It's like, this is what it needs to look like, and then let them figure out how to move people around in the camera to get it to look the way that it would in real life. And so there's a bit of a dance there.
Yeah, dance is it's a great way to put it. It's about relationships, right? Like it doesn't matter what industry it is. If you come out of the military and say, hey man, here's how we did things, and so here's how I do things, and here's how we're going to do things now, it's like, well, no, it doesn't work. You got to come in and actually integrate into that community of people that are professionals that have their own culture and have their own understanding, and say, all right, where can I fit in? Where can I learn? Where can I help? Where can I step in? And like you said, how do we meet in the middle? And what at the end of the day makes the best product on screen? Because that's what people are watching.
So for instance, like the donut shop scene, that was mostly scripted out, and I came in and I really did like shot placement and weapons manipulation. So it's like, okay, so if this is the scenario that you guys painted, this is how I would come in, and this is how I would deal with it. This is the sequence in which I would deal with these, quote unquote bad guys, and so they were like, perfect, let's do that. And it just came into, it's a team effort. It's like, this is how I would handle it. And they're like, can we do this? Can we do this? Can we manipulate here? And it is. And during training, and then once that's all locked in, then Jon comes in and rehearses it to a million times, and then we put it on screen. It works out great.
I came into the industry as a first AD, so whenever I have the chance to nerd out about first ADs, I like to. And I did. There was one film that I AD'd that had some stunts, nothing like this, and nothing. There was more fire, and it was like a horror film. There was some fun stuff, but like nothing crazy. But so paint the picture for the audience, for people who might not know what it's like to be on set, that donut shop scene. So who are you working with to block that out, right? You're working with the director, the DP, probably got the first AD trying to figure out how to get stunt versus on-camera principal in there. Like, walk us through what it like actually feels like doing.
By the time we get there, I'm watching camera because I don't want to see it in person. I want to see what's on the screen. Right? That's all that really matters.
Yeah.
So I'm in the tent. We've rehearsed it so much that it really doesn't require much. My point is making sure that Jon's doing what Jon needs to do for the character. So I'm just watching the screen to see if there's any sort of like inaccuracies that if that thing gets shown in the edit, if his finger's wrong, if his placement's wrong, if he moves wrong, that it doesn't show on the screen. And so there's very minimal corrections that take place because it's been rehearsed so much. But there are, like, I'm like, hey, grab it this way, the camera needs to be over here. I mean, we had the EP was Robert from, he's an Academy Award winner DP. Like how we got the team that we did, I don't know. It's just Jon. But, it was, people knew what they were doing, so it wasn't that difficult. What's really difficult is how do we, because of the timing we had and the budget we had, how do we get what we need to get in a time that we do? So sometimes there is we're going to cut something, so we have to like figure out what stitches together. What's the tactical sequence that stitches one thing to the next thing, and then and make it, look good on screen.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point. It's really easy to get onto a set and to be so excited about the environment that you're in and everything that's happening, that you forget to look at the monitor at Video Village. Right? At the end of the day, our focus needs to be the end product. What's going to be on screen? What's in frame, right? And so awesome that you had that discipline already built in with an understanding of saying, this is what I need to watch because this is what I'm responsible for. I think it's easy for people to get on set and do the opposite.
Yeah, I think you can watch in person and be like, oh, that's not right. And it's like, well, no, it looks good on the it looks good on the screen. And that's what really matters. It's that angle.
Yeah. All right. I want to ask you a couple questions about Spider-Man in the sense of, so you're coming into this, you worked with Jon on Born Again, and then you're obviously working really closely with them on this to get this right. And that, again, like we just said, the end product for One Last Kill, that is what needs to look great and be great. But his story arc is going to continue in this larger cinematic universe, and it has to fit.
It's exciting now. Yeah.
So were you guys talking about character development for the next iteration? So bringing this level of grounding and then saying, then he's jumping in with Tom Holland and some of these other characters, like, or how did you manage the universe of it all versus just what we're seeing in this film?
We were very focused on Punisher One Last Kill, but the intent, the reason why we were focused on it is because if he was going to continue on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, then we had to get this thing right. For him to step off of this and then to go step into Spider-Man, as even though the rating has changed, we felt like it needed to be a seamless transition, and I think that's why that's why One Last Kill kind of ends the way that it does. Is so that he could step on the set of that, and it's like, oh, that's why, because of that, now he's here. You know what I mean? And I can't really speak to anything else other than that. I didn't get to work on that project. My good friend Colton Hill, who helped us on one last kill, he worked with it on that. So like when that comes out and after in August, you definitely should have him on. You can give some insight. I know a couple things, but I'll save that. I'll save that until it comes out. But nonetheless, that's what was very important to Jon, was that we get this right so that he could continue on in the MCU and then now start writing what the next intro movie would be and what that story looks like.
And are you working with him on that and trying to we'll see.
We'll see.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. All right. This was awesome, man. I'd love to get connected to Colton. Anybody else you feel like would be a value add here for
Cody, I don't know if you saw his scene at the end, Cody Alford.
Cody Alford. He got messed up.
He got messed up, man. That was his first time ever doing something, and I think that he freaking killed it, man. Like he just I'm so stoked for him, man. I'm so stoked. When I saw him come on screen, I was like, holy cow.
He killed it, and I loved it. There's that. I mean, you talk about like the realism of using and manipulating the environment that you have. He comes on to screen wearing that chain, and just as a storyteller, as a writer, as a director, as a producer, I'm thinking to myself, like, it's like Chekhov's gun, right? Like that thing's got to be used, and it's being used. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
I
said, it's funny. I texted him. So we're talking about this. This is like, I think we're in the process. We're already filming principal photography, and we're still trying to wrap up the ending and certain people and certain stunts. And I texted him. I said, hey, send me a picture. I used what was the movie with Samuel L. Jackson, Bruce Willis, and they were like superheroes. Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, Red. Is it?
No. He was Bruce Willis is like super strong and indestructible, and then Mr. Glass.
Oh, Unbreakable.
Unbreakable, yeah. Right? And then they did one where all three of them in there, and then the other actor he had a split personality.
Boy, Charlie, yeah.
And so he's like ripped and jacked, and he's like screaming, and he's like, I sent that picture to Cody. I said, hey, can you take your shirt off and send me a picture of you doing this stance right here? And he did, and I showed the team, and I was like, hey, would this guy work? You know, because Jon wanted Cody in. I was like, hey, will this work for that part? And they were like, yes, send him. And so, and that's how he ended up as the final boss. And it just came out to such a great scene, but he got murked pretty bad.
Yeah, and just kind of back to the way, I think the director handled it too, and I guess the screenplay too, but just the direction there of like that, like you said, he just got murked like we've seen a lot of brutal things throughout the 40 minutes up to that point, and then you see this kind of, I'll just say, small weapon that's being used, right, to take care of him, and then there's the girl over there in the corner with the woman, and then Jon's restraint, right, to just not really speak, and then to just navigate the scene that takes place right after that stunt was like, man, just like talk about like not breathing and then breathing, and just the intensity matched with a different kind of intensity, played by those actors that are not in the action, so to speak, was just like, man, it was great.
Yeah, she did such a great job. And that's the thing. It's like we didn't want to have to like paint that story for you. We wanted to get that story across without having to explain it.
Yeah, you show us just so that we can feel it. I love it. All right, we're coming up on time. Nick, I appreciate it. Where can folks find you? Where can folks find the film? And where can we drive some traffic here for you?
Yeah, Disney Plus, man. It feels every time we said that, we're like the Punisher, and then we just do this Disney. But yeah, Disney Plus, go watch it. If you guys love Punisher, we need this to be successful, which it is. I think it was more success than they were expecting.
That's amazing.
Which is good, because that means if that's the case, then we should see more more Jon Bernthal's version of the Punisher in the future. Which, whether I'm involved or not, I want it to happen. You know what I mean? Like, it needs to happen.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
And I know he won't. And I know he won't. Like he says, like either he does it right or he doesn't do it at all. So.
That's it. I love it. All right. Well, we'll collaborate on posting all that stuff on social. Get this stuff out. We'll put a link to your book in the show notes. And I don't have to link to Disney Plus. I think people know where to go find this on the. But Nick, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Appreciate the work. And hopefully we'll do this again sometime.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
Cheers, brother.